but I have the Sisters of the Moon on this video. We're about to bring them all on the screen. I wanted to introduce you to these girls. They have a location in North Georgia that they've been going to, and they have just so many good stories about this place. I was talking to Debbie last night. I said, we've got to get you on to tell some of these stories. There's Debbie. Here's Barbara. And here's Sandy. Hi, girls. How's it going?
Hi, Cam. It's going good.
Yeah, going real good.
I'm so glad to have y'all on. Yeah, thanks. So glad to have you guys on. Okay, so Debbie and I were just talking. Debbie and I and Barbara were just talking on a Skype call last night, and they were telling me some of these. They were telling me some of these events that they've had in North Georgia. Now, let's just start with this, and then we'll just let this conversation go. How did you pick this area? How did you guys, did you hear about some activity there, or why North Georgia?
I guess it was because of me, but not initially. It was not because of me. I have a girlfriend that lives in the North Georgia area, her and her husband. I'm just going to say their first names, Scott and Sheila. They actually took me to that location and was telling me all about it and some of the amazing experiences they had. And whenever they took me there, all I could think of was, oh my goodness, me and my group's got to go. We got to go. And it has been amazing ever since. So that's one of our most favorite spots to go to.
That's great. And so Sandy, you suggested it. You got with everybody else. They're like, hey, if there's activity there, let's go. Is that kind of how that goes?
That's exactly how it went. And there's activity. Yes. And right. I'm very grateful that Sheila and her husband showed me this area, because it's been nothing but short of amazing. We've just been very, very blessed to have found this place.
So is this kind of your main area of research right now? I mean, is this where your attention is focused, or have you guys got other areas that you're looking at?
We have 2 or 3 favorite places, but this is definitely in the top 3, I would think.
Well, after the stories I heard last night from Debbie, I can see why, because I mean, it's unreal. Okay, so do you want to start from the first camping trip there and kind of get us to the point where you are today? I'll just give you just turn it over to you, and you guys explain it, how it all went.
Well, I guess our first trip was when my niece Stephanie showed up and Patty showed up, and we had tons of activity. That it was like me and Stephanie actually beat Barbara and Debbie there, and we heard crazy things out in the woods before they ever even arrived. And one time, and there was not anybody at this location near us, and my niece, she's learned a lot. She's learned a long ways. But she said, I think I hear someone talking. I said, there's no one talking out their way. What did you hear? She said, I couldn't really make out what they were saying, but it started with a bang. And it caught my curiosity immediately, because I know, they did definitely have their own language, but I never heard what she heard. But my niece is not one just to say anything. If she doesn't hear it, she doesn't hear it. And if she hears it, she's going to say it. That's kind of how all of our concepts are. And later on that evening, Barbara and Debbie, they came up there, and it was complete wonderful sense. I mean, we don't go out into the forest. We don't have to look for a thing. We just sit around the fire and act normal, and it comes to us every single time up there. And it's always been amazing. Debbie's really good storyteller. She can tell you some of the wonderful things that's happened up there on our first trip that maybe I've even forgotten about, but I know that whole entire trip was really incredible.
Go, Debbie.
Well, we've been there. We've been there about 5 times now, but 3 of those times were in October. And October has always been our most active time to go. That first trip, like she said, there were Stephanie joined us, her niece, And it was her first time, if I remember correctly. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, girls. It was Stephanie's
No,
first
she
time.
was in Jefferson with me and Sandy.
Oh, yeah, that was the very first time.
Yeah.
And she, when they were in Jefferson, it was just the three of them, Jefferson, Texas, outside of Jefferson, Texas at the lake. And they played, Barbara and Sandy played a recording of the gibberish that we recorded at our Tribulation Bay location. And as soon as they played that, something dropped down. It sounded like, they said, from behind their tent out of the trees. And they could hear, it seemed like it was running up behind them. And it shook the trees, and it had been raining. So water doused down on the tent.
Yeah.
And then they took off in opposite directions on either side of the tent through the woods. And they could hear all the crashing and everything. And it scared the crap out of Stephanie. Naturally, I mean, it was her very first time to go Bigfooting, and here this happens. And so they went in the tent, and one of them had brought some spirits of sorts with them. I think it was Fireball. And I think Stephanie downed a large portion of that. But ever since then, she had to calm her nerves. But I tell you what, she's been with us every single time now in North Georgia. And there's been more activity in North Georgia than there was there in Jefferson, outside of Jefferson. And each time she has just gotten, you know, she's becoming a natural now. And so when we told her that we were going back this October and what we had planned, she took off work. And she's the first one, I think, probably that got time off cleared. And so she's awesome. She's hilarious, just like her aunts are. And we have a lot of fun. But Stephanie was with us that first time in October, first time in North Georgia. And we had rocks started in the first, as soon as it got dark on the first night, we had rocks. Well, let me go back. We heard growls coming from this area that we call an island. And it's just a mound in between two ways to come in to where we camp. And on the other side, there's a dirt road. We're on top of a mountain, and there's a big hill on the other side of that dirt road. And we usually park the vehicles. There's usually two vehicles because we try to ride together as much as we can. We park those out there by the island usually. And we had begun hearing growls back from there. That was the first thing we ever heard. And then they moved over to what I would say would be the left side of our camp if we're facing the tent. And we started hearing growls from over there, and then rocks started being thrown from us. And this is usually how it starts every time we're out there, at least in October. And so that's how it started that night. And the last two times in October that we've been there, the rocks just start being pelted in at us. They've never hit us, but that first October that we were there, I was sitting across from Sandy and Patty, and I was at an angle. We had a big circle around the fire, and from back towards our tent, we had a table set up right next to the tent, and that's where a lot of the rocks were coming from. And they were throwing, there's a trail, a game trail that goes down at an angle back behind our tent. And that's where the rocks started from, off of that game trail. And at one point, I looked over because I heard movement, and I saw just a big, like something had scooped up a handful of rocks and dirt, and they chucked it from that angle. And I could see a big rock about this big. It was kind of flat, but it was about that big around, coming straight towards where Sandy and Patty were sitting. And I hollered, rock. And it just came right between them, probably about this far from their heads. And they had a bucket turned upside down between them, sitting between the chairs, kind of like a table. And it hit that bucket. And we've got all that on audio. And at the same time that happened, there was other rocks with it. Some of those rocks rolled over and went up under Stephanie's chair, their niece. And she bent down and got one out from under her shoe. And Sandy bent down and picked up the one that hit the bucket. We've got pictures of them. Later that night, The three of them spent the night in their tent, and Patty and I slept in ours, and we had our doors where they were facing each other. We had a door connected to the end of their tent, and we kept our mesh open. You know, we didn't close up the door solid. We wanted to be able to see each other. And we were in there, and they picked up a clump of dirt and everything else again several times, and would throw it up on our tents, and it would go sliding across the roof of the tent and over onto our tent. And at one point, after everything started dying down, we finally went to sleep. But Patty is a very, very light sleeper, and she would wake up at the least little thing. And so she heard something coming from the back side of our tents, walked down behind the side, and ended up going in front of our tents over to where our table was, where we used to have food. We always packed the food up because there's bears up there. And as it was coming back, we still had the fire going, and we have twinkle lights that we set out everywhere because we've been able to see shadows like that before. And so she was trying to pull my hair to wake me up. She
did pull your hair.
And so, yeah, she did pull my hair finally hard enough to where it woke me up. And when I looked at her, she's over there going, doing the little walking thing, trying to tell me that one had just walked by the tent. Oh. After it was finally gone, she told me that she could see even a tuft of hair sticking up on it, and that its arm was swinging as it walked, and she could tell that it came way down below its knees. But ever since then, every October that we've been there, we've had activity, very similar activity. And in October, this past October, we had a guy that was actually on down from us about a mile or so. He was the only other person up there. Barbara had seen him earlier in the day, and he had come over and talked to her. He was a younger guy, and he was just camping out of his truck. And I'm sorry, my dog's barking in there. Mm-hmm. But later that night, after it got dark, we were there, had the fire going, twinkle lights on and everything. And I'm standing up facing the road, and I look out and I see this guy standing, coming up close into our camp. I didn't know who it was. I didn't connect that it could have been this same guy that she had told us about. He didn't have a headlamp on, nothing. But he had a 3-foot sword in his hand. And I said, y'all, there's a guy with a sword. And they both turned around to look, of course, and Barbara said, that's that guy. And he comes into camp, and he's scared to death. At first, we weren't sure if he was scared or if he was on something. And he was like, did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? Please tell me y'all heard that. And we're like, what are you talking about? And he was calling it a Medusa scream. And that wasn't registering with us. We didn't hear anything, didn't know what he was talking about. And then he described it as a pterodactyl sound. And so we're still not quite sure what's up with him. And Barbara tells him, you shouldn't walk up on us like that in the dark without announcing yourself. We all have guns. We wanted to let him know that. And he said, I was just trying to warn y'all. And seemed like he kind of got a little ticked off. And so he starts to leave. And I looked at Barbara and I said, great, you just pissed off the man with the sword. We were scared because, we were so surprised. He was walking down this road in pitch black dark. What he was saying wasn't making any sense. We didn't know if he was a meth head or what. And so I said, y'all, he could be over here in this holler, hiding, just waiting. And so we decided we go right down to where we knew he was camping because he had told Barbara where he was at earlier. And just to make sure he had gotten back to camp, because we couldn't imagine how he had walked or gotten back so quickly, in the pitch dark. But when we got up there to his camp, we saw his truck, and it wasn't a campsite. These aren't it's not a campground. These are just little areas that people use. They pull in there and use to camp if they want to. And they're just all over the place, spread out. But they're only about, ours is first where we go. And then you have to go about a mile down, and that's where he was. And then you go on around probably about another 4 miles, and way on to the end of the mountain, and there's a camp that we call the closed camp. But we get over there where he's at, and his truck is there, and there's a pile of clothes up in the center of the truck. Like he's just thrown everything in there, and his dome light is on, his door is open, but he's nowhere to be found. And so we say out the window, hello. And he comes out from behind the woods with a sword still in his hand. And now he's shaking. And you can see his hands shaking because he puts them up to his chest. And he says, please tell me you heard that. And we're like, we didn't hear anything. And he said, because it was just this moan. And when he does that, he said that it had to have massive lungs. Well, then we're like excited because we know what he's talking about now. It's beginning to make sense. And we're realizing he's petrified. And I was in the back seat, and I leaned over so he couldn't see me grinning. And I said, heck yeah, because now we know he's talking about a Bigfoot. And we said, well, we were just checking on you, making sure you were okay. And so we head on back to camp. And as soon as we get back to camp, that's when the rocks started in on us again. And that night was just unbelievable. And it's constant rocks until we go into our tent. And we usually stay up until about, wouldn't y'all say, girls, about 1:30, 2 o'clock?
Yeah.
On average. And then we go into our, and then we go into
drinking Fireball.
No.
No, that was just there one time with Stephanie. We usually don't have it. But when we get into the tent, then things amp up even more. And we've seen the shadows, walking by because we have all of our twinkle lights up. And this last time in October, I decided to go live, and we did live streams onto the Mark and Larry's channel, Beast TV. And on their Facebook page, we'd go live whenever the activity was happening because we wanted to be able to document it somehow.
Yeah.
And luckily, when I'm around the fire, I have signal. But when I go in the tent, I usually don't have very good signal, but Sandy does. And so she would go live when we were in the tent. And we've got it documented on camera where I was walking up to the tent one time, fixing to go in to get something, and I was live. And as I'm about to unzip the zipper, you can hear one run up behind the tent. And it scared me. It startled me because I wasn't expecting that. And I said a few choice words as I got back away from the tent, and went back to the fire. But the people, I asked them on the video, I'm like, could y'all hear that? And several said, yeah. A lot of them had headphones on or earbuds in, and they could hear it. But we, that same night, about 5:30 in the morning, the what we think are the younger ones messing with us early on, that had died down about 3:30, and we fell asleep. And then about 5:30, we woke up because we heard that guy's car hightailing it out of there. And just within a minute, we heard what he was talking about when he says the Medusa scream. And it was a high-pitched call, basically, just right outside the backside of our tent. And if it hadn't had a whoop on the end of it, I don't know if we'd have known what it was because we've never heard one that high pitched before. And then just a few seconds later, it did it again. And it had a high pitched whoop on the end of it. And then we were like, oh, so that's what he's talking about. It kind of makes sense because it is like you hear a pterodactyl on Jurassic Park. It's kind of like that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
was this guy that y'all met with the sword? He's interesting, and I don't know how y'all weren't. Somebody walked up on me in a campsite with a sword in his hand, I might just start shooting. I don't know.
Well, he had walked up on me when I first got there. I was unloading my Jeep, and he started telling me about a murderer that was in the area. And all I could think was, I hope it ain't you.
He was talking about that guy that killed that Gabby Perdido or whatever, and he was on the Appalachian Trail and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the first guy we've had walk up. Now, when we were there in March, it was cold, storming. We had tarps covering our tents and everything completely. We were hunkered down. And we had been there. Barbara and I stayed there a week, and Sandy was there for probably 4 or 5 days. And she was fixing to leave, and it was her last night, I think, with us. And we had not had any activity other than one rock coming in at an angle and hit about this far from Barbara's head on the tarp. And so that got our hopes up a little bit, but then we didn't hear anything else. Like I said, this was in March, first time we'd been there in March. We go in the tent, we fall asleep, and about 5 in the morning, Sandy wakes me up. We always sleep where we can reach each other real easy. So she wakes me up and she points and like this. And as soon as I wake up, I hear whoops. And you could tell it was running. And it was so weird because we've never heard it like this before. It would go whoop, whoop, whoop. And it was constant. And you could tell it was moving. And so we got excited. And we're sitting there listening to it, thinking, holy crap. And then from the front of our tent, we hear, hey. And we look, Barbara's awake now, and we look at the tent. Well, it's pitch black. The fire's gone out. All of our twinkle lights had gone out. And we had the tarps covering this gazebo that we have in front of it that we use for kitchen area. So I was going to look out, but I couldn't see anything because it was pitch black. And I just go, yeah. My first thought, though, was, is that a Bigfoot mimicking?
I was about to ask that.
So weird. But I said, yeah. And he goes, if I keep following this road, will I end up at the bottom of the mountain? And I go, yeah. He doesn't say thank you, nothing. It's just silence. And so now we're thinking, what the heck? That was a little creepier actually than the man with the sword, because we didn't know who this guy was. We had not seen anybody because there had been nobody on that mountain in March. And probably 20 minutes later, we heard this car just hightailing it past us. Now, this is a barely big enough road for 2 cars to pass. And we are up on the top of a mountain, and it's a sheer drop off, basically, when you're going down the mountain. And it takes us 45 minutes to get up to where we're at. And so we think that they had been out drinking or something, maybe gotten into a tiff, kicked him out. They broke down, felt bad, and then came back up there and got him. And we never saw anybody again after that. But we found it really interesting that the only time we heard anything was when that guy was walking up into our camp, and that Bigfoot was whooping like it was running away, warning either other Bigfoot or warning us. We don't know. But that was really interesting to us.
Yes.
I've heard a lot, I've heard quite a few of your stories of your group, and and you've talked about them on Mark and Larry's channels and different. You've been interviewed, you've gone to conferences and spoken, and I don't know why I didn't. I'm trying to silence my phone. It broke my concentration. What was I about to ask you?
You've heard our videos.
Yeah. I know you've had all these experiences, but I just want to say, I know why. It's because you're there. You girls go. You don't. I mean, you guys have had so many expeditions that I hear secondhand through Larry and Mark. When I first met Larry and Mark, they were talking about the Sisters of the Moon. I remember that weekend down at Grenada, and Bear was there, and several people were there that that I had heard on the internet and all, and they were talking about the Sisters of the Moon there, and I was going, what? Who? That sounded so weird to be in a Bigfoot, in the Bigfoot topic, and
yeah.
But all I wanted to say is you guys have these experiences because you find out where the activity is through friends or acquaintances or, people in the topic, and you go. And, and if you put yourself there with them, apparently you have, activity around. Okay. 2 questions. What happened to the guy with the sword? Did y'all talk to him the next day? Or
he left.
He out of there.
Yeah, he left.
And this guy's
He left.
walking around the dark woods with no headlamp, no flashlight,
Nothing. Nothing.
and he just showed up at your camp. Some
Yeah.
strange. That is so weird to me. Some guy walks up with a sword in his hand. That is the weirdest thing.
It was
We
weird.
thought it was.
That was really weird. We let him know we had weapons because I had my little weapon on me, and I stood up and kind of had it on my side where he could see it, you know.
What did you ask him? What was he doing with a sword? I mean,
Well, it was his protection. He was going to defend himself against whatever had those big lungs, I guess.
so it's probably something he just carried with him.
Yeah, because the first time he came up in my tent, I never mentioned this, but he did. He had one of those little medieval looking things that kind of looks like a hammer and it's got spikes all over it.
Yeah.
He had one of them things hanging on his hip, and I thought that's weird, dude.
He's been watching that ninja guy on TikTok, you know, does the Judy chop and all that stuff. But okay, so you guys are going back to Georgia. When is that trip planned?
The first week of October.
So that's about 2 or 3 weeks. 2 weeks away. And how long are you going to be there? What's the plan? Is it just to be there and let them come to you? Or you have some other people that are going to be on the other side of the mountain? Or tell us how that's going to work. And then tell us the equipment that you're going to use.
Mark and Larry and Spencer Jameson, Mark Newble, Larry Porch, and Spencer Jameson, we talk, all the time with them. They know everything that's happened while we've been up there, and they're fascinated by it. And so they presented us with an idea that they come to the mountain. We will have no contact with them at all. We're not going to be going to their camp. They're not coming to our camp. We're not going to ride in the cars together. We're only going to meet at the bottom of the mountain. And, but they're going to be camping somewhere where hopefully they have a good view of this holler, because the rock throwing always begins in the holler. And then it circles all the way around the tent. We know there's more than just one because we've had rocks coming in from 3 directions at the same time. And so we're hoping that they can get a view of whatever's throwing the rocks at us with their equipment that they have. They've got thermals and night visions and, everything that you can imagine pretty much. All we have are 2 FLIRs, the little TK Scouts. And, but they're hoping to catch something on their side. But at the same time, we're hoping to be able to step it up a notch. And we're wanting to buy some equipment that, will be beneficial to us. A good night vision, thermal combo, something where we can record, better audio, because there are whoops, and we've heard tree knocks, and one time it sounded like a tree crashed. And so there's all kinds of activity that goes on out there. And we're wanting to get as much equipment as we can to capture this activity. We want to be able to set it up in different locations and, even behind our tents, because we've seen so many of their shadows. We have plot watchers that we're hoping to use. We'd like to buy maybe some no-glow game cams to set out there. But we have purchased 2 see-through blinds that we can see out, but nothing can see in. Of course, we don't know anything about the vision of a Bigfoot, so we don't know if it can see in or not, but we're hoping that it can't.
Yeah.
So we're going to connect one of those to our tent to where we can move back and forth from our tent into the blind. And then we're going to try to set the other one up with some equipment in it. But we need some good quality equipment. We've been using all this time just Olympus and Sony recorders, and we've been able to purchase now some Tascam recorders. We'd like to have a parabolic of some sort, to capture a wider angles, I guess, with the audio. And then we've only had the TK Scouts and stuff. And
let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
I know there's a piece of equipment that you want to buy, and all of you women work, all of you women are on budgets and everything. And last night while we were talking, I was telling you that people are always wanting to donate to my channel, and I won't let them. I won't take donations just because I don't think anybody should give me money just because I like doing YouTube. It doesn't make sense. However, I told Debbie last night, I said, how about you give out your PayPal account and we'll see what kind of response we get on that. And I told her right away that I would donate $500, which will be the proceeds.
Fantastic.
The proceeds from this video up to $500 is what I'll do. And so if you guys want to, she's about to explain to you what she's wanting to buy, and they may make it, they may not. If they don't make it, they will spend. Look, I know Debbie, and I'm acquainted with the other two women in this interview, and they're just as straight up and honest as they can be. I would leave my dogs with Debbie. That's about the best. That's the best level of trust I can give you. But so I'm going to put her PayPal address up on the screen while Debbie or any of the other, Barbara or Sandy, wants to talk about what you guys are going to buy. And it's not really too terribly expensive. You don't have far to go to get there, do you?
No. And, we want to let folks know that this is not for our camping trips, traveling and eating and stuff like this. This is so we can get better equipment to share better, because it's such an active area. If we had some good equipment, we think we could possibly get a money shot.
Yeah.
And be able to share. And people, we never thought they would, but people like to see what we're doing. So we want to share better.
Yeah, that's all it's about, because actually going and doing this research costs us money out of our own pockets. I mean, we've never asked for donations for anything, but even doing that's an expense to us to be able to do that. And Barbara and I know Debbie's the same way. We just would like to give something to show everybody that's interested in what we do. It's not trying to become famous or anything like that. It's just shown interest.
I'm getting some
Hold
feedback.
On,
Sandy, hold on a minute. Let this boat go by. Barbara's sitting there on the lake.
Sorry.
With her dog. Okay, now finish
There's
what you were
a boat
saying.
going by.
Yeah, I wish I was there listening to that boat. But anyway,
He's loud. Okay.
It's not for fame or fortune. We're just hoping to have a little bit better equipment, because we are in such good areas, and North Georgia has definitely been one of the more active areas. And if we can possibly catch something on this little bit better equipment than what we've had, all we've really had is, some FLIRs and some voice recorders. And if we can get some better equipment to maybe catch something, and we'd love to share it with people that do follow us and that is interested in what we do. So, because we're having the experiences, and we would like to be able to show a little bit more of what we are experiencing, if we can possibly do that for everybody.
Yeah. So what is this you guys are saving up for?
Debbie knows all that stuff.
Yeah.
What we have found is it's a pulsar brand, and it's night vision and thermal, both combined, and it also records audio and video. And it's used in hunting a whole lot. It's $3,000, right at $3,000 for this. It's actually a scope, but it looks like it's a binoculars. But one side, of course, is the IR light included in with it. But I've looked through it, and it's amazing. But like I said, it's $3,000, and we like the fact, though, that it records both audio and video. Because, I mean, you know, we can't do all of that with the equipment we have. We have just a TK Scout, and that's not the greatest of things, actually.
So you've
It's
got a
better than
thermal.
not having any, though.
You'll have a thermal image on the screen, and you'll have audio catching you guys going, "Holy shit! What the hell is that thing?"
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you
And,
see that?
Yeah. And so
Okay,
that's
and
what we're hoping for.
Right.
You're a little ways there, and then if you add my donation and what other people's donations are, and the excess will all be, am I getting this right, will all be used for gear that you guys go. You're not putting it in your pocket. You're not, you don't need money to buy your kids Christmas or anything. This is really for, and here's the thing, folks. It's easy to be suspect of things like this, but I trust these women. I'm going to PayPal her $500 probably tomorrow. And sometimes you just have to step out and say, okay, I'm going to trust that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. And that's what I'm doing. And I have no doubt, and I can't wait to see what they get. And so I hope you're able to raise enough to get it. And if you don't, go buy some other good gear, or just let it continue to build up, you know. But if you'll look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see PayPal, and then there's an account number that you can PayPal money direct to. I'm sure they would appreciate anything. And so here we are. First time we've ever talked about money on the Dixie Cryptid channel. And,
Thank you very much for your very generous donation.
Yes, we are very grateful.
well, these videos, you know, the YouTube runs ads on them, and they're very generous with the YouTube creators. And so there's no telling how many views this will get or how much money this video will make. But if it's along the rest of them, it'll be $150. And then the rest of it, I'll kick in. And I've had a good year in my steel business. And I'd love for y'all to have this, because I know how enthusiastic you are. So
we love what we do.
All right. So now Mark and Larry and Spencer, is it just those three that are going to be across the holler from y'all? And they're going to be camped over there, and they're just going to observe. What the whole goal is, when you guys camp, the creatures seem to come to you, and they're going to observe from another location with their thermal gear and their FLIRs and all that stuff. Are they able to record those infrared images and things like that?
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, before he passed away, he donated a piece of equipment to the Beast team. And so Mark Google uses that a lot, and it's pulsar, very similar. And so Mark will have that. Larry and I believe Spencer probably both have a TK Scout too. And Larry gave me his, but I'm going to let him have that back while he's there. But we both have, you know, equipment over there where they're at.
Okay.
And hopefully, you know, if we can't get something, they can. And most likely where they'll be camping is probably going to be really close to the area that the guy with the sword was camping in and got run off from.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very liable to get some activity over there themselves.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they like me very much.
I want to meet that guy.
I don't know if he'll ever come back.
Well, in the comment section on all my videos, it's, you know, I do these, you have to do a thumbnail that catches people's eyes so they'll at least click on the video. And normally people enjoy what I do, and it doesn't go to research or anything like that, but a comment I get over and over and over: no picture, no proof, no picture, no proof. Well, you got to be there to get the picture. And my usual response is, send me a picture then. If you got a picture, but all they want to do is see pictures. Well, here it is right here. These women are going for pictures, going for video. They're going for absolute proof. And I think there's another boat going by.
Just turn your microphone off, Barbara.
I was looking for that button. There was 2 boats that time. I'm so sorry.
They're gone.
They're
I don't
gone.
see a button that lets me go mute.
It's okay. They're gone.
Yeah, they're gone.
All right. Well, I think that's what I wanted to hear from you girls. What else is going on?
Well, I just wanted to say that if we're not able to purchase that big piece of equipment that we're wanting, the money will be used towards other equipment, and we will put up on the Beast page photos and everything of everything that is purchased with the money. And I'll even put the prices, of how much everything was total, so people can see, like those 2 blinds I mentioned, see-through blinds. We used some of the money for that already. And so we'll put up everything that is purchased with that money.
So,
and we just...
Debbie was going through the list last night of money they've already raised through another means. And they were the things that they're buying just for this expedition and going forward after that. And so you list all of that stuff. You're accountable. You're trying to be accountable for all that stuff. I think that's great.
That's right. And we just want to tell the listeners that we will try to go live again while we're there. As long as we have signal, it'll either be me or Sandy, most likely. And we go live on the Beast page. Beast is an acronym for Bigfoot Evidence Analysis Sawdust Team. And you can type in Beast TV or whatever. They also have a YouTube channel, but you can follow us if you want to. Just join that page and we'll go live anytime we have some sort of activity happen, just like we did this past October. That way you can listen in and follow along and be there with us just to experience what we're experiencing.
Right. Yeah, I'll link those in the description. Larry's is Beast of the Woods. Mark's is Sawdust Beast. He hasn't changed the name of his channel, has he?
No.
It's still Sawdust Beast. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But you can type in Beast, just Beast. And like I said, that's an acronym for Bigfoot Evidence Analysis Sawdust Team. And then his Facebook page is the same, and that's where we go live on the Facebook.
They both have very active YouTube presence and Facebook. I don't know if they're on Instagram or anything, but I know YouTube and Facebook are very active pages. So, well, all right. What else? How are the Sisters of the Moon, the women? Are you girls doing okay? Life going good for you?
As long as we're out Bigfoot and we're great.
We do love it.
Here comes another boat, y'all. Yeah. These people need to go home and eat dinner.
I've been mosquitoes are eating me up, and these hummingbirds are dive bombing my head.
Oh man. The Sisters of the Moon are great, and we travel all over. We've been from one ocean to the other, Bigfoot.
Yeah, I know y'all have been in the Pacific Northwest. I know you spent time in Oklahoma, Arkansas,
Louisiana.
You've been to the
I've been
yeah, where we did the documentary that we did called Trackways. You guys have spent a lot of time up there, and they look that if you want to get Bigfoot activity, you got to be there. That's what these women do. And I've always just had this fascination that there's a group of women who actually do this. Y'all are probably the only group of all females who do this in the whole United States.
There's some more. Yeah, there are more female groups, and we encourage that.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're at 45 minutes. Everybody's probably yawning. I'm gonna sign off and thank all three of you for doing this and agreeing to coming on, because your stories are always great. Wave at them, Barbara.
Get the hell out of here.
Do in the hell's on the lake at 6:30 in the afternoon? All right, well, we're going to sign off. If y'all want to say goodbye, I'm going to say goodbye, and then I'll...
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night. We look forward to better sharing.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Y'all stay on after I end this recording. I want to talk to you for a minute.
All right.